Hi, I'm Lana Kelly, and this is Hudson Valley Art Speak. Thank you for tuning in today. We're going to be talking to a painter, Bob Ferrucci, today, who has some really amazing paintings here in the studio that he did of barns and has been working on for quite a few years. Thanks for coming, Bob.
Thank you, Lana. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You want to jump right in and talk a little bit about your barns? How you said you were a kid who grew up in Yonkers,
Right.
Which ironically I was too.
Interesting.
But that you ended up moving north to where you loved.
Right. Well, when I was young, we had a little cabin up here. My aunt had a cabin, and she used to take us up for the summertime. So I would come up for a couple of weeks or a week or whatever during the summer here and there. And living in Yonkers, and then coming up here and seeing the horses and the cows and the barns on every corner. We had barns and farms everywhere. Really, really attracted me. I just fell in love with all of it, And when I got married and had my first child, we ended up moving up here because you end up, in the place you love if you're lucky, And I was. So that's kind of, the barn thing was always in my head. And I always loved all the farms and all of that. But, and I was painting, pretty much all my life. So I started my first art lesson when I was 9 years old or 10 years old. And it ended up that I did a lot of other types of paintings for many years and never did anything with barns. And I was struggling to find my own place in art, my own style, my own place, my own thing that I wanted to do. And I was talking to my wife about it, so I have to give her credit for this. Eileen said to me, well, why don't you paint barns? I said, everybody paints barns. She said, but not like you. So that was, that rung a bell when she said, not like you, and that's kind of what got me started on the barns, and it got very serious after that.
Yeah. And I can see from what you brought to show us that you paint barns in a variety of styles.
Right.
So is there one particular style you started out at and it just kind of evolved, or are you just always experimenting?
I'm kind of always experimenting, but I do love the folk art look. It's not really folk art. It's more three-dimensional than a two-dimensional folk art painting. But it has that sort of innocent, childlike simplicity to it that I'm very attracted to. And when you paint like that, you can use more fun colors without, abusing art. And keeping a painting, and you can still play around with it a little bit more. You can expand. But I do barns, like you said, in a lot of different fashions and styles, and I just love to experiment with paint.
Yeah. And do you ever paint plein air, or are you in the studio, or how do you do that?
I did paint plein air when I was young, but I don't anymore. I'm a studio painter. A lot of what I do is involved with tinting. And when you're doing a lot of tinting on a painting, it has to be flat on the floor, or on a flat surface at least. And you do different forms. This has a lot of tints in it, and they're different colored tints, and they're used at different times. And then I do a lot of, after tinting, a lot of varnish work, and then rework the painting again and do more tintings in different colors. So a painting like this one might be painted and reworked 4 or 5 times before it's finished.
Right. Let me just ask you, what is the difference between tinting and painting? I mean,
a tint, I can do a painting or get a painting really started till it almost looks like you would tell me that's it,
Right.
And then I'll take a tint of a burnt umber or a burnt sienna, and I'll water it down and glaze over the whole painting.
Whole thing?
Yeah, and then repaint the painting. After it dries, that's why it has to be flat on a flat surface. And then repaint the painting, and then again and again. Sometimes that's done 4 or 5 times. That painting up there has probably got 5 layers of different tints and paint on it.
It's very rich looking.
That's what makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
It's the tinting. And that gift was given to me by a friend who, I'm sorry to say, died very young. His name was Gil Stone. And I met Gil. We became good friends because we were both painters. And he was a professor at Visual Arts. And he was kind enough to show me how he did tinting. And that allowed me a whole new way to experiment with paintings. And I've never stopped using it since Gil passed away.
Yeah. How long does it take then? I mean, it seems like if you're doing so many multiple layers, it would take a lot longer for you to paint the painting than, say, with somebody who was just doing oils and finished it.
Well, yeah, I guess you could do tinting with oils too, but that would take forever because you'd have to let the oil dry. But with acrylics, I use mostly acrylics, and I use some oil pastels on the surface to create a sort of crusty, rough feeling sometimes when I want that. It does take me a long time, but I enjoy taking the breaks in between. So after I tint the painting, I'll let it dry and I'll go take a nice break for myself, and I'll come back to it. And I don't paint a painting from beginning to end. I might be involved with a painting for a month or two, or 3 weeks or something, but it's not like I start one day and finish 2 days later. I never do that.
Really?
I'm always enjoying the process, letting it sit, bringing it back, doing it again. Not totally satisfied, bring it back and do it again. That kind of thing. Because you can keep painting a painting forever.
I know.
You don't ever have to stop.
I know.
But there comes a point where you say, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah. And what about this painting here? It's very much more impressionistic,
right,
than the two next to it.
Yeah. It's softer.
Yeah.
And it's almost done with all tints. It's very soft painting. And I don't know if you'd call it, I guess it is impressionistic in that way, but I do some of my barns in a real impressionistic fashion where you can go back to look at the impressionists and then look at my stuff and say, oh, that's kind of what he's playing with,
Right.
and you can recognize it. So I do enjoy working in all these different styles. It's all the same thing with a little different technique. Because I'm doing tinting on all of them. I'm doing the layerings of tint. I'm doing the painting. Then I'm varnishing, sometimes with a matte varnish, sometimes with a high gloss varnish. Mm-hmm. Then I'm using oil pastels very often to create certain feelings. The painting here, the outlines, a lot of those are done with the oil pastels. This whole surface is almost all oil pastels. So it's just an addition.
And what does that add that's different?
It adds this textural feeling that you don't get in this, in just painting, So when I add an oil pastel at the end when I'm getting to near the surface of the painting, I'm trying to add an effect, a feeling, a texture, And painting to me is all about feeling. I mean, when I do a painting, I do it, and it's an emotional thing for me, and I expect it to be an emotional thing for other people that like it. Now, there are some people that don't like it. That's okay too.
Do you find that, I find that with photography, a lot of times, sometimes people come away with a different feeling than the feeling I intended or the feeling that I feel about the photograph. And do you find that with your paintings too?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, some people will see. But most of what I'm doing has a soft, gentle, peaceful feeling about it. Almost meditative, if you will, That's the kind of thing I like to achieve. A lot of people just see a certain beauty in it, mm-hmm. and they like that, But an awful lot of people will say to me, I get this calm feeling when I look at your paintings. Well, that's pretty much what I'm trying to achieve, this soft, calm, meditative quality,
Yeah, I think that when I get a piece of work or something, I wanted to be able to hang on my wall forever.
Right.
To just love it so much. And these I think are wonderful. So this is what you want people to take away from your work? Is it, that calmness or yeah?
There's a serenity, calm. And it's funny you mentioned that you want to hang something for a long time. You want it to be there forever. And I do a lot of outdoor shows and indoor shows and gallery shows. And I get a lot of people coming back to see me again. And I always ask them the same thing. Are you enjoying the painting or the print? Because I do prints also of my work. And they tell me they're enjoying it, they love it. And I mean, there's no better feeling than having somebody tell you they have your painting hanging in their home and they treasure it.
That's true. It's in a place of honor.
Yeah, it's just so, you know, for you to do that for me, you know, to hang my painting in your home, it's pretty nice.
Yeah. So do you do any of the outdoor shows like locally in Dutchess or Westchester or Putnam?
Yeah, there's one coming up in Lyndhurst, which is in Tarrytown.
Yeah.
And that will be, let's see, I have some, the 29th, 30th, and the 1st of May, 2016. And then I have one coming up in Rhinebeck. And the Rhinebeck one is 24th, 25th, and 26th of June.
And they're all outdoor shows?
Those are outdoor shows. I'm usually in an indoor tent or an indoor building. I don't like to be totally outdoors, you know.
Right, yeah.
Especially with the prints because of rain and
they could
moisture
and
you know.
Yeah. So you said you since you were a kid you've been painting. It always amazes me when people have that vision that they kind of that's their thing and that's what they have to do with their life.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was really little, I would always have a pencil and I'd always be doodling with something really. I mean, before I could even do much with a pencil, I had a pencil in my hand. And my grandfather, this is the stories they tell me, my grandfather used to say, this one's going to be an artist, you know, in his Italian accent. He used to talk about me being an artist, you know. And I guess he knew what he was seeing, you know. Because I just loved it. I took my first art lesson when I was 9 or 10 years old and pretty much never stopped.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And say in your middle years when you had a family and everything, were you doing art? Were you doing commercial art or what? How did that go?
Yeah. Well, raising a family is pretty tough when you're doing art, and I have two children and 5 grandchildren now. So. Yes, I did commercial art. I worked in publishing. You know, I did a lot of different jobs. I had my own businesses for a while doing typesetting and graphics and things of that nature. But I always had the fine art in background of my life.
Right.
And I was always had a fair amount of success with it, and I'm very blessed now that people like my work. So.
Yeah. Do you have a website where people can see your work?
I do. It's something very original. BobFerrucciArt.com.
And is that do you do it e-commerce or is it just people would get in touch with you or?
I'm on Facebook.
Yeah.
I have a Facebook site, so they can see me there also. But the website is reasonably active.
Yeah.
And I don't do much of anything else on it. But mostly the shows and the galleries. I'm invited. I'm fortunate that a lot of galleries like to have my work. And some of them have it year-round, and others just do a show for me or do a group show, and I'm part of it.
Yeah, I know you were recently in the new gallery in Paulding, the Eastern Gallery in Eastern Hay.
Right.
And Front Street Gallery. And so, Bob, we have reached the end of our time.
Oh, so
see, it goes quickly.
I so much enjoyed it. It was it's a pleasure to sit and talk with you.
Well, thank you. It has
almost
been
felt
a pleasure.
like we weren't even filming.